KTN News. Get the whole story.
A very good morning to you and welcome to Morning Express. My name is Trix Ingado. Today on the show, we shall be taking a look at what has been happening all through the weeks, taking a look at the political dynamics, also keeping you updated on what's been happening in the country and beyond with a look at international news later on. But also we have entertainment on Friday, and Brian Aseli shall be bringing us the very latest and his special entertainment guests just to get you into the weekend mood. Now, before we get into it, let's take a look at what's making headlines internationally, and let's start off with the Daily Monitor. This, or rather that is the Citizen. In Tanzania, we are being told Tanzania tops Africa on food security, and of course Africa faces a bunch of problems including drought and food insecurity, but Tanzania seems to be doing well on that front, and that is what they're leading with this morning. They also have a tally of the situation of the coronavirus in the region. Kenya leads, and of course Tanzania, given that it came late to giving data on this situation, it is still behind, but of course they are handling coronavirus like the rest of the region. Also, we have the Daily Monitor. The Daily Monitor right there giving us news on what the president is up to as far as January 2022 is concerned. Take a look at the Daily Monitor to see what is making headlines in the Pearl of Africa. Thank you. All right, now let's take a look at what's happening locally. We have the Standard this morning leading with Raila factor in Mudavadi Kalonzo feud. Suspicion triggered by revelations of behind-the-scenes negotiations between Wiper and ODM leaders forces Mudavadi to consider other options, including a new political formation. Also, a clever headline right here on the Standard front page tells us Uhuru's Pandora's box remains sealed. We are being told President promised a response after papers exposed his family-linked companies and offshore accounts holding billions of shillings. And also, remember the President said he would address this once he is back in the country. Also, why Nyeri School had to change its name. An interesting story on page 9 that we shall get into later on. But let's also take a look at what's making headlines on the front page of the Daily Nation. We're told revealed new name for Uhuru Raila coalition. Now, that talking about the Azimio la Umoja, the banner under which the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has been campaigning could morph into the 2022 vehicle for President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader after it emerged that a key member of a team driving the alliance has reserved the name at the registrar of political parties. Also, they're giving us news about youth voter apathy, and the youth are telling us why they will not be voting. They are tired, apparently, of recycled politicians who don't fulfill election promises, convinced that the system is rigged, and frustrated about the ethnic mobilization around politics. Young people are giving the voter registration a wide berth. Finally, we know why scores of young people shall sit out the 2022 general election, and they have been sampled, quite a number of them also pictured on the front page of the Daily Nation. The Business Daily is leading with Airtel drugs regulator into Safaricom battle. Telco says ACAK reluctant to declare big rival dominant and wants review of spectrum allocation interconnection fees. Also, Talo races for Kenya oil partner, and of course there's ready for a fresh run. Butali Sugar Managing Director pictured there as he inspects some of the motor vehicles that shall be used in the sugar refinery. Now let's take a look at some other stories that are making headlines, and we start off across borders. Facebook has changed its corporate name to Meta as part of a major rebrand. The company said this is part of its strategy as it broadens its reach beyond social media. The change does not apply to the individual platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, only the parent company that owns them. In 2015, Google restructured its company, calling its parent firm Alphabet. However, the name has not caught on. Moving on to some local news, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Haji, has dismissed calls for his resignation, saying he will not be intimidated. Haji insists that his office has been operating within the Constitution and therefore will not be cowed. 2 petitions for his removal have been filed by the late Tob Cohen family and businessman Francis Njeru, who accused Haji of interfering in his case. And as Daniel Kariuki now reports, Haji says some independent institutions mandated with investigations have been interfering with other departments.
A perceived rivalry between the Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP Nordin Haji, and the Director of Criminal Investigations, DCI, George Kinoti, over several cases has increased recently, threatening operations of the Investigations Authority. The two have engaged in a back and forth, especially on a case involving the death of a businessman, Tob Cohen, prompting a petition to be filed before the Public Service Commission, PSC, seeking for his removal. Haji has now waded in on the ongoing fights, accusing some of his investigating counterparts of interfering with other personnel mandate.
This natural tension has in recent times expressed itself in unhealthy hostility, undercutting, and at times partners overstepping the boundaries of their constitutional mandate to attempt to take up the role of others. This ultimately obstructs the cause of justice, with some partners unwilling to subject or submit themselves to constitutional scrutiny and accountability by fellow partners within the NCAJ.
Haji says he will not be intimidated into resignation.
Some of us have served in the front line for this country. I have served in Somalia, fighting Al-Shabaab, and nothing will cower me. The pen is mightier than the sword. Even when the sword apprehends, at the end of it, it is the pen that decides.
2 petitions for his removal have been filed, accusing him of mismanaging of cases, but Haji insists he operates within the law. Haji was speaking at the National Council on the Administration of Justice NCAJ Stakeholders Forum in Mombasa Thursday, attended by Chief Justice Martha Koome, and called for cooperation from all justice sector players for a fair administration of justice to succeed in the country, sentiments echoed by Koome. The family of the late Tob Cohen, through their lawyers, have filed a petition before the Public Service Commission, PSC, seeking to have DPP Haji removed from office, accusing him of mishandling the murder case of their kin, and brought a new twist to the fallout of Haji and Kinoti. The Public Service Commission is yet to submit the petition to the President, whom, according to the law, shall within 14 days suspend the DPP from office and appoint a tribunal to investigate the claims.
And I assure you that the next DPP, if I do fall at all, will come with more gusto to pick from where I've left. The pen has written, The ink has dried. We will not allow any clawbacks on this constitution.
DCI Kinoti was, however, not present at the conference. Daniel Karaoke, KTN News.
Now, has President Uhuru Kenyatta reneged on his undertaking to respond to the Pandora paper leak that linked the Kenyatta family to ownership of 13 offshore companies? It has been almost 2 weeks since President Uhuru Kenyatta jetted back into the country, where he had promised to give full details on the offshore family wealth once he came back. Well, this is not the only pronouncement by the head of state that is yet to be honored. Senior political affairs reporter Jeff Kirui interrogates the president's reneged promises.
When news broke out on the 4th of October in the Pandora papers linking President Uhuru Kenyatta and 6 family members, including his brother Muhoho and his mother Ngina Kenyatta, to at least 11 farms, including one holding assets valued at over 3 billion Kenya shillings, the president did not deny facts in the report, promising to give a comprehensive response when he gets back to Kenya.
And as I said before I left Kenya to come and attend this meeting, I will be addressing that issue comprehensively once I arrive back home.
But since getting back, President Kenyatta has addressed several functions, among them the Mashujaa Day celebrations in Kirinyaga, giving the issue a wide berth. State House spokesperson Kanze Dena, when reached for a response, says President Kenyatta will do it and that she will let the country know on the specific day. But this is just one of the many pronouncements by President Uhuru Kenyatta that are yet to be fulfilled. On the 28th of December 2018, during a question and answer session with journalists at State House Mombasa, President Uhuru Kenyatta, live on national televisions, promised to make public contracts of the standard gauge railway between the government of Kenya and China. This was after suggestions emerged that the government of Kenya could have put up several public assets as guarantee, including the port of Mombasa.
Kwa hiyo contract ni pahali gani?
Nipe tafadhali.
Nitakupatia. Ni mali yako jameni, wewe si Mkenya.
However, 4 months later, on the 28th of April 2019, State House took an about turn. In an interview with KTN News, Musyoka Waita, then Chief of Staff, dismissed any possibility of making the documents public.
The president is a human being, he's fallible, and if he gave a commitment that could not be followed through, it's not for want of trying. His hands are tied by the law. Even if he wished to hand over that contract to Mark, he can't.
Then there was the lifestyle audit declaration that President Uhuru Kenyatta made during his Madaraka Day speech in 2018.
Na ule wa kwanza kufanyiwa lifestyle audit ni mimi, kwa sababu mimi ndio mfanyikazi number 1. Si ndio hiyo? Yes. Mimi, alafu tuende kwa huyu, alafu tuende kwa governor, alafu tuende kwa Masharia. Kila mtu aseme hii maisha unaishi kwa njia gani.
This promise, like the few mentioned, have remained just that. Its implementation is still yet to be realized. In August last year, at the height of the COVID pandemic, President Kenyatta once again gave a directive to investigative agencies to probe and conclude within 21 days the KEMSA COVID-19 kit scandal.
The relevant agencies should expedite their ongoing investigations and conclude the same within 21 days from the date hereof.
However, 1 year later, not a case has been prosecuted in court. Director of Public Prosecution saying they returned the file to EACC for further investigations. Jeff Kirui, KTN News.
Thank you, Jeff Curie, for that update. And let's move on to another story. Pope Francis has appointed Archbishop Philip Anyolo as the head of the Catholic Archdiocese of Nairobi, which is the largest archdiocese in Kenya. The 68-year-old will take over from Nairobi Auxiliary Bishop David Kamau, who has been the acting administrator of the church since the retirement of Cardinal John Jue in January this year.
The news of Archbishop Anyolo's appointment was officially published on Thursday, October 28th. A statement from Bart Van Meegen, the Apostolic Nuncio, read in part, "I have the honor and pleasure to inform you that Pope Francis has appointed the Most Reverend Philip Anyolo, presently Archbishop of Kisumu, as Archbishop of Nairobi. The 68-year-old, who until 5 months ago was the chairman of Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops (KCCB) between October 2013 to May 2021, takes over from Archbishop Emeritus John Cardinal Njue, who retired in January 2021. Nairobi Auxiliary Bishop David Kamau was appointed the Nairobi Diocese Archbishop in acting capacity. Amani National Congress Party leader Musalia Mudavadi was among the leaders who congratulated Anyolo on his appointment. Through his Twitter handle, Mudavadi said, "I take this early opportunity to congratulate Archbishop Philip Anyolo following his appointment by Pope Francis as the head of the Catholic Archdiocese of Nairobi. We wish him all the best and God's grace in his new jurisdiction." Born in 1956 in Tongareni, Bungoma County, Anyolo was ordained priest for the Catholic Diocese of Eldoret in 1983 before he was appointed by Pope John Paul II as Bishop of Kericho on December 6, 1995. February 3, 1996, he was consecrated as Bishop of Kericho, where he served until February 20, 2002, when John Paul II appointed him Apostolic Administrator of Homa Bay upon resignation of Reverend Linus Okok Okwach. He was then appointed Bishop of Homa Bay in March 2003 and installed Bishop on May 23, 2003. He also served as chairman of the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops between October 2013 to May 2021. He was appointed the Archbishop of Kisumu and installed on January 16, 2019. At 68, the new Archbishop will serve for at least 7 years before he retires. The Catholic law demands that bishops retire at the age of 75. Shadrach Miti, KTN News.
Now, inmates from Naivasha Maximum Security GK prison now want to petition the High Court to be allowed to partake in the election of all elective positions. Speaking at the facility yesterday during the ongoing voter registration exercise, they said voting for their preferred presidential candidate alone is discriminatory. Inmates began voting in 2017 after the Kituo cha Sheria successfully petitioned the High Court in 2013 on behalf of Shimolatewa inmates. Alan Ochanda reports.
After enjoying the fruits of voting in 2017, inmates now intend to go back to the courts to seek the green light to be allowed to vote for all elective positions. They argue they have been denied their constitutional rights by being allowed to only vote for the president.
Sababu moja yetu ndiye aliweza kufile petition ndio tukarutiwa. So vile pia hii opportunity ambayo tumepata pia vile tutarudi kwa kote vile tu tumeleza na hapo moja wetu hapo awali, turudi kuweka petition nyingine tena.
Nilikuwa naomba pia serikali tupie nafasi pia tuweze kuchagua hawa wabunge wengine kama MCA, senator, na ndio maana itasukuma via kama tukipata nafasi hata kuchagua wabunge wetu mahali hapa, kuna uwezekano pia wataweza kutusaidia katika zile sheria zetu ambazo siko pale bungeni. Hata kama utatoka utaachiliwa na koti, maana sisi wafungwa tunakanga na matumaini tunaweza achiliwa anytime.
The decision by the court allowing and restricting inmates to take part in electing their presidential candidate of choice largely considered the limitation of their freedom of movement, as almost all of them are incarcerated in facilities far away from their homes, and thus it will be a logistical nightmare to have them participate in voting for the rest of the seats, as it will mean traveling back home. They, however, say this is discriminatory and infringes on their constitutional rights of allowing them take part in deciding the country's leadership.
Wakati tunaposhikwa tunapitia changamoto, maidisi naenda DCI wanakukatasa kitambulisho, lakini unakuta vile umesettle vizuri, unakuta pengine prison. Inatusaidia sasa hiyo opportunity ya kuweza kukata vitambulisho na kufuatilia hata zile zimepotea.
Changamoto kubwa ile tuko naye ni kwamba hawa ndugu zetu wengi hawana vitambulisho. Lakini tumeongea na watu wa vitambulisho na very soon wametuahidi watakuja kuwakatia vitambulisho ndio waweze kusajiliwa kama wapiga kura.
The enlisting of inmates as voters has been ongoing, albeit underwhelming as the commission records below per new voters number.
Tukaona ni vizuri tuje tuwasajili na tunaona kwamba nambari ni kubwa. Tunatarajia kusajili ikiwezekana zaidi ya 1000 wao wapiga kura. Ingawa labda kati yao kuna wale ambao wamejisajili ama wako katika sehemu zingine, lakini tuhakikisha kwamba tumeweza kusaidiana nao hapa.
Alan Ochanda, KTN News.
Meanwhile, the management of Moi High School, Kabarak, says that the school is still on its usual learning program hours after a fire incident was witnessed in one block of the blocks housing boys' dormitories. The chair of the school's board, Gideon Moi, and school principal El-Sheba Cheriot have assured that all students are safe and unhurt and have been provided with alternative spaces to live in. On their part, the students were largely optimistic about completing their academic calendar.
At the Moi High School, Kabarak, it is business as usual. This is despite a fire incident recorded at one of the buildings that houses the Mara Athi hostels. Though signs of the fire are still visible, no one was injured in last evening's incident that is said to have been caused by electric faults.
Started 2 minutes to 6.
And on Thursday, the chair of the school's board, Baringo Senator Gideon Moi, assessed the damage. Moi visited the affected dorms as well as the new places where learners had been placed and later had a meeting with the school's management.
Thank you, boys, for really showing high-level maturity. Thank you, the girls. I'm sure your role was to pray for our boys of Antimara. But I really want to appreciate that you went to bed when you were very calm, you woken up well, and you went to class.
That we put this behind us, we will learn from it, all of us, yourselves and ourselves. Your welfare is at the topmost of all that we think of, all that we do, and all that we strive for.
Also visiting was Rongai MP Raymond Moi, who was among the first people on site when the fire was reported. Few parents were also spotted at the school, among them Laikipia Senator John Kenywa.
Hilo janga ndogo lilitokea lisije likakuwa kikwazo cha sisi kupanga mahali tunakokwenda.
Security agencies were also here to ensure the safety and security of all learners. Ibrahim Karanja, KTN News.
Meanwhile, Deputy President William Ruto yet again took his charm offensive campaigns to the political backyard of Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka in Makueni County. The Deputy President wooed voters from Kalonzo's turf, asking them to assess the former Vice President's track record and that of ODM Party leader Raila Odinga, as well as party leader Musalia Mudavadi, who are his competitors as the marking scheme ahead of the 2022 general election. And as our senior political affairs reporter Chris Thairu reports, Ruto is enjoying support from a good number of former legislators from Mukambani region.
It was the second campaign tour of Makueni County in Ukambani region in less than a week by Deputy President William Ruto in a bid to woo voters ahead of next year's general polls. The Deputy President, who is on the prowl to try to win the region that has been overwhelmingly voting for ODM party leader Raila Odinga and his Wiper counterpart Kalonzo Musyoka in the past 2 consecutive general elections, urged the locals to vote wisely as per everyone's development track record.
Njia ya kukabiliana na changamoto tulizonazo ya ukosefu wa kazi, ya umaskini, ya njaa, ni sisi wote kuungana, tukijua ya kwamba kwa umoja tunapata nguvu.
Nini kama watu wa Kaiti, muko na mumeingia na mumesikia vile munalia, angalieni msirudi kwenda kulia hivi.
In what seemed as salvos directed to One Kenya Alliance, Oka, Ruto laughed off the principles for continued meetings in hotels before picking their presidential candidate.
Na mimi sina shida na mtu yeyote. Mimi niko hapa na agenda yangu. Fikira mtu anakuja na yake jameni. Na nyinyi si wenye kuamua. Kwani mtashindwa kuamua? Na mambo itaamuliwa na nyinyi. Msiambiwe ati kuna mtu ataamua mahali nyingine. Hakuna, hii maneno haiwezi kuamuliwa kwa hoteli na haiwezi kuamuliwa kwa ofisi. Wale wana huko kwa ofisi na hoteli wanajaribu kusema ya kwamba wao ndio wataamua, watakuja kujua hawajui. Kwa sababu mambo itaamuliwa hapo.
Legislators who had accompanied the Deputy President piled pressure on President Uhuru Kenyatta to sack cabinet secretaries who have already publicly supported Raila Odinga presidency.
Sasa sisi tunashangaa. Hawa watu ambao they are holding very important dockets concerning election. Wao wanasimama tayari na kusema they are supporting Raila Odinga. Sasa, do you think those elections are going to be free and fair? They cannot be free and fair.
Matiang'i atokeze aseme aungi tiala la mkono, yeye atasimamia usalama wa nchi wakati wa uchaguzi bila maneno mengi, aelezee wa Kenya tuelewe. Lakini kama ni yake ya kusema yeye yako kwa tiala, itabidi aondolewe kwa hiyo ministry.
The deputy president of late has been enjoying a soft landing in Ukambani region with backing from former members of parliament, Wiper defectors among others. Chris Dairu, KTN News.
And one of the top stories on the paper has to do with the issue with Raila factor in the Mudavadi Kalonzo feud, and there is fresh suspicion that has rocked NASET, the One Kenya Alliance, over claims of behind-the-scenes negotiations that have been involving Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka rejoining ODM leader Raila Odinga in President Uhuru Kenyatta's succession race. Now, besides that, there are allegations that one of the One Kenya Alliance principals plan to register a new coalition as a fallback plan. Let's take a look.
And later hold rallies in Kakamega town, Khayega, Sigalagala, and Malawa. The campaign forays in Western Kenya will last 2 days before moving to Mount Kenya region. Early this year, the principal starts a technical team to lay strategies that will see it form the next government after the 9th August 2022 general election.
Tumepeana kwamba by December 31st, ni lazima tuwe na flag bearer wa One Kenya Alliance so that moving forward, we market a specific person.
The Kakamega meeting comes against a backdrop of claims of secret plans to register a new alliance as a fallback plan. Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala admitted writing to the register of political parties to reserve Kenya Kwanza as an alliance as a fallback plan in case there was a dispute in registering OKA. He said they have since dropped the plan. ANC Deputy Party Leader Ayub Savula said the decision to reserve Kenya Kwanza was done out of caution. Savula claimed that the narrative of a new alliance was being driven by their opponents who are scared of the strategy in the Uhuru succession race. Makueni Senator Mutula Kalonzo Jr. said the plans for the new outfit could be as a result of the infighting in Oka. Mudavadi is on record insisting he was to run for the top seat. KANU Secretary General Nick Salat said KANU was not aware of plans to register a new alliance and was focused on strengthening its structures. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka is said to be negotiating to rejoin ODM leader Raila Odinga. Mutula Jr. told the Standard there were efforts to have Raila and Kalonzo join forces ahead of the polls. The two sides have, however, hit a brick wall after it emerged that Odinga has reserved the number 2 slot to Mount Kenya, thus ruling out Raila Kalonzo ticket.
Kumekuwa na rumors kwamba wengine wameenda sijui kujiunga na Raila, wengine watajiunga na Ruto, but kesho tunakuja kuhakikishia Wakenya kwamba One Kenya Alliance bado tuko pamoja.
President Uhuru Kenyatta and his team are said to be keen to have One Kenya Alliance principals and ODM leader Raila Odinga work together to face off with Deputy President William Ruto and his wheelbarrow party UDA.
Kama tutafanya kazi na Raila Amolo Odinga, awe tayari sasa pia kuunga mkono either Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, Gideon Moi, pia yeye aunge mkono hao wengine tuone wanaweza cheza mpira namna gani, lakini isikwetu ati ni kila siku ni yeye.
Political pundits are of the opinion that more alliances and formations will give Kenyan voters good menu to make a wise choice after sampling different manifestos and workable promises post-COVID-19 pandemic. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
Thank you, Patrick Amimo, for that story, and it's leading us into our discussion this morning. And to have that discussion and dig into the other stories that are making headlines with me is Professor Alfred Omenya, who's a governance expert. We also have Alex Manyasi, public policy analyst, as well as Kasim Tandaza, the Matuga, member of parliament. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us bright and early. Okay, let's take a look at what's making headlines. On the front page of the Standard, we are told Raila factor in Mudavadi Kalonzo feud. Suspicion triggered by revelations of behind-the-scenes negotiations between Wiper and ODM leader forces Mudavadi to consider other options, including a new political formation. Professor Omenya, I mean, this this is the season for this sort of horse trading and negotiations. Do you think it's out of order for Mudavadi to be considering his future and making these calculations, even though to some they are not very happy, particularly with the OCA, the One Kenya Alliance?
No, thank you, Trix, and thanks always for having us in the studio. I think what Mudavadi is doing is what I would do if I was in his position.
Shoes? Yes.
Because I mean, if you look at the One Kenya Alliance, the OCA Alliance, the only person who seems to be pushing any agenda there is Mudavadi. Really, I mean, he's the one, talking about the economy.
Actively, yeah.
He's the one, moving up and down, to campaign for himself and the One OCA, the OCA Alliance. The rest are used to freebies. Let me just put it that way. I mean, they don't really work hard. They got the tag of kingpins. I think that's something we should remove in our Kenyan politics. These tin pot gods of tribal regions, not even proper leaders, who just position themselves and actually do get some extremely high positions. We know people who've been vice presidents of the country by just positioning themselves cleverly. Yes, so the way I look at it is that Mudavadi needs to enhance his chances of being in the next government and even negotiating with a winner. And currently, the way OCA is structured, I think it's assumed that Kalonzo Musyoka would naturally be the leader of OCA, despite the fact that they've not necessarily picked a flag bearer.
Right.
Yes. So I think as those negotiations within OCA and eventually, hopefully, their nominations will take place, it's only strategic for Mudavadi to also think about other options. But lastly, we also know that OCA, Mudavadi, and so on are considering not just running, but also pushing a second round voting in the next elections, and that would actually give the OCA principles and even Mudavadi a stronger hand. Yeah, and I think those are some of the things that are not settled because you see, OCA can decide to go in as OCA and lose and then negotiate with whoever they think will win. But in fact, that scenario is still quite tenable if there's a fourth alliance. In fact, the chances of by fourth alliance, I mean a fourth group. We were looking at the Raila Odinga group. There's the so-called Azimio. Then, of course, the Ruto group. Ruto doesn't like alliances, but his group.
He's had to concede to some of those.
Exactly, and then OCA, and then maybe a fourth one. Yes. So if you have relatively strong groups, it will force a rerun. And reruns, the beauty with them for people like Mudavadi is that they give you an opportunity to negotiate with people whose strength you'll have already assessed in the actual elections.
Yeah. Now, I'm glad we have Honorable Tandaza here. Perhaps you can shed some light on these suspicions or these allegations, because we were being told Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi is said to be mulling a new alliance called Kenya Kwanza. And we've also had Senator Cleophas Malala coming out to speak about that. What's your take on what's going on with Musalia Mudavadi and what's informing this possible change of heart when it comes to OCA?
Thank you, Trix, and it's always my pleasure to be on this platform. I'm not only the Matuga Member of Parliament, but also the Deputy Party Leader of Amani National Congress. That means the Deputy Party Leader of Musalia. It should also be noted that today we are in Kakamega, of course, doing our usual business of talking to the people directly and asking for their support. But having said that, I think there is a lot of, what would I call it? So some people would want OCA not to exist, One Kenya Alliance not to exist. One, there has been a lot of pressure of trying to force One Kenya Alliance to name their presidential candidate.
Yes.
Really? 10 months to an election, it started almost 1.5 years to an election. That is not a priority at this point. I think the priority is to expand OCA, One Kenya Alliance. If you were to ask me, and from where we sit, the priority is how can we strengthen One Kenya Alliance? How can we bring more people on board? How can we bring in more people of like-mindedness, of the shared ideas, shared values into One Kenya Alliance? And exactly that is happening. All the principles in One Kenya Alliance are mandated to talk to other people, to talk to other political parties, and bring them on board. If it will necessitate changing the name because of the other alliances that will come in, then be it. But ultimately, the idea is to make it stronger.
Okay.
We've been very clear on this matter that whatever arrangement would be, of course, Musalia should be on the ballot. But of course, we respect also the other members, and that is why there is no bad blood. When the other principal, Gideon Moi, was launching his bid, we were there.
Yes.
You see. When Kalonzo, we were there. But ultimately, and it has never been a crisis. I don't know why Kenyans this time around, they are thinking that there will be a crisis when it comes to picking a flag bearer under the One Kenya Alliance or in any other commission. It has never been there. It has never been there in the previous elections, even in the last election, the National Super Alliance. When it came to picking the presidential flag bearer, there was no crisis, but people were imagining now that would be the breaking point.
Honorable Tandaza, the standard says suspicion has been triggered after the revelation of the behind-the-scenes negotiation between Wiper leader and ODM leader forcing Mudavadi to consider. Could you explain that dynamic? Why the assertion that there is suspicion? Is there no trust amongst these principals?
Remember, there are two things here which we have to look at.
Yes.
That even when there have been MOUs, even when there have been alliances put in pen and paper previously, we've seen that trust has been a big issue. So we cannot say there is 100% trust, even when it will come to negotiating with other parties. But up to where we are, I think we've been very open that we've not ruled out any negotiation or any coalition with any other political party, be it ODM, be it Jubilee, be it any other political party. All what will determine is whether we'll agree on the basics, we'll agree this time on the policies of how we can take this country forward. And ultimately, since we'll be having a shared vision, we'll definitely have the first among equals. It's not a question of one being a subordinate of the other. Remember, in the current scenario, everybody has worked with anybody, including the deputy president. He's worked with Raila. Kalonzo has worked with Raila. Honorable Musalia has worked with Raila. They have all worked together. They have worked with Uhuru. They have worked with anybody. So this issue of trying to bring that this time around this can't happen, I think that is where Kenyans might put themselves into a surprise. And yet we know in the politics, ultimately people have to agree. Right. And in the next general election, whoever is going to win, he will win through a coalition. Up to now, I don't think even the deputy president, the way he's saying that he's going to go it alone, I'm not convinced on that matter. It can't happen, and he knows it very well. So I think it's a question of when, not whether, there'll be a coalition. Okay. And for that matter, the One Kenya Alliance then is ahead in terms of trying to bring people together with shared ideas.
All right. Now let's get the opinion of Alex Manyasi. Alex, what do you think is feeding the suspicion right now, and is it right for them to be making a fallback plan? And do you think that, what do you think a Kenya Kwanza alliance would result in if you look, you can predict what's going to happen in 2022?
Yeah, thank you, Trix, and good morning to our viewers. Yes, the split of One Kenya Alliance is probably one of the things that worries most of the members of One Kenya Alliance because of one reason, is that they are sticking together probably is the only strength that they have in terms of either forcing a rerun or if not forcing a serious negotiation, then that would make a meaningful alternative in terms of what currently exists. That's one. But secondly, just like I've said on this show before, that any of them leaving the alliance will give a very good platform for the camp that they will be joining. So if you look at it that way, then it means that any suspicion, and by the way, what my imagination is that the suspicion comes out of the fact that in the recent past, the meetings that One Kenya Alliance have been holding, somehow it looks like they have not been on the same page with Kalonzo Musyoka. I say on the same page because of even reading the body language. There was a time it was reported that, for example, Kalonzo Musyoka, when there was a press conference, he had engineered that the press release be done in a certain way. So there has been a suspicion that he wants to be put as first among equals. So that in itself then starts putting the question as to whether then he looks at it as if One Kenya Alliance was to hold together, then he becomes the automatic presidential candidate. But if you look at the way One Kenya Alliance is designed, almost Kalonzo Musyoka and Musalia Mudavadi, they both look like they hold a stake to a point where none of them wants to be the running mate to the other. And so my thinking is that probably in Kalonzo's thinking, that probably he has two options at the moment, either to rally with Raila Odinga or to rally with the deputy president. And at this point in time, I do not think that there's any intention to have discussions with the deputy president, unless, of course, that changes in future. And therefore, to see, especially those guys who then want to capitalize on the current scenario where Raila Odinga is in government, technically, and so want to capitalize on the fact that there's the thinking that then that is a bigger advantage, then we want to gravitate towards that direction. But in terms of solidness of wanting to stand on their own feet, probably in that group, Kalonzo Musyoka will always be suspected because of the history. Whether whether that history is real or perceived,
yes,
that's a different matter altogether.
As we before we go take a break, the paper, the Daily Nation this morning is describing it as a Cold War, and when you look at the article, it starts off a bitter fight for the One Kenya Alliance presidential ticket between Amani National Congress and Wiper leader. We've heard Honorable Tandaza saying that there's no crisis, but do you think it's apt, these descriptions that are being given, Cold War, a bitter fight, is it apt or is it an exaggeration? Mr. Manyasi.
Yeah. So Trix, if you know, taking time to popularize One Kenya Alliance, just like any other party, that's why if you see the only person who already is using a vehicle that is known is the ODM leader Raila Odinga. But the deputy president, everywhere he has gone, he has had to tell people what to say, so that he continues popularizing UDA. So the One Kenya Alliance, as at now, is a vehicle that then, if you want to move away from, as you move toward the election, anybody stealing it away from you or anybody forming anything that is close to One Kenya Alliance, then takes you back to the drawing board, because then you'll have to kind of coin another thing that people will need to get used to saying. So that in itself will take you back many steps. And yes. So the reason why protecting an outfit like that will be important for purposes of looking at thinking about the unity that it perceives to bring. That's one. But secondly, in terms of not having to start afresh or to look like you have been thrown off balance because the only vehicle that you had then has been taken away. So those are the reasons why someone will jealously want to protect. And you also want it to look like someone walked away, not because, and not that a vehicle that you are in was taken away. So the perception of how that happened